So, guys, I want to talk about the controversy surrounding Damaris Lewis, who is an actress who is in Queen of the Ring, and she said something along the lines of, "You all know who's going to win before anybody else does. So, thank you for teaching me that." And there is a huge misinterpretation. Like, what she means is that there is a line in Queen of the Ring, and there's a mentality that Mildred Burke had, which is, you know what, you know who's going to win the match. You know who's going to win before anybody else does, and that's really supposed to mean I'm confident. I have a winner's attitude. I see what my future is going to look like, and it's ultimately almost like you look at somebody. I'll give you a great example. You look at somebody like Swerve Strickland. Like, he had that mentality last year when he was talking about being the first African American world champion. Like, his mentality was like, no matter what, I'm going to win and become the AEW champion. So that's a great example of that. Another great example is Bryan Danielson during WrestleMania. He had that mentality when he was against Batista and Randy Orton, and then he had a prior match with Triple H. It's supposed to be like, I have a winner's mentality. I know that I'm going to win the match. I know that I'm going to, slay the dragon. I know that I'm going to end up on top, really. So it's really just a never give up. I believe that I'm going to win this impossible odd, really. I'm going to have positivity to keep on going. That's what she actually meant. However, 100%, we always have to understand that our words can be misinterpreted. And if our words are misinterpreted, that's completely on us. And that's happened in professional wrestling many, many times. I would say that, there was a segment in TNA wrestling that was controversial when Hulk Hogan was in charge, where he's talking about the heels and the baby faces, and he got scrutinized for that because you shouldn't be mentioning heels and baby faces during a wrestling match. There have also been other segments, in history, like, when Vince McMahon said, "Keep it up, my nigga," like he was trying to act like this cool, out of touch old man using the N-word and stuff like that. And while, it's a joke about, white people doing cultural appropriation, saying the word nigga and all that, on one side, it does come off as racist because obviously a white person saying the word nigga is never acceptable. And it also reads like, oh, well, the boss of the company can say the N-word, even though it's not, it's meant to be cultural appropriation. Like, you hear Butter say that and Jimmy or Timmy say that in South Park. People understand that in South Park it's about ignorant people, but where in WWE it kind of reads like, oh, it's not about Vince McMahon being ignorant. It's about him saying that he can use the N-word in any type of context and there's no consequences. So, in professional wrestling, there's definitely a history of people just, using, bad wording or bad language and then, just creating a controversy. And I do agree that, sometimes, there are situations, and I think it's very clear that with like the past 2 weeks, with what happened with the Elimination Chamber with, I think they said his name was Trevor Scott or whatever was his name. Like, the guy who went into the ring, he assaulted Cody by hitting him wrong. And then also, too, you had this really great moment, and he's just there, and it just doesn't really fit. It should have been just John Cena, Rock, and Cody in the ring during that, really. So sometimes when we have celebrities, we got to say, hey, do we actually really need them? Or do we actually they should just be in the crowd and we just, like, don't talk to them? Or sometimes we say to them, hey, you guys got to say this exact thing. You got to follow the exact script. Or what are you going to say on screen? And we have to just, really, edit what you say, really. Or, like, okay, that can be taken out of context. And that's really what it was, really. She took it out of, what she said was taken out of context. Because obviously, even though it's a line about never giving up, it's really a line that gets misinterpreted as saying wrestling is fake or wrestling, is predetermined, and that's not good, appropriate for a pay-per-view. So I do blame, them for not talking with her beforehand, saying, hey, what are you going to say? And we had to take it from there, really, So yeah, and I also want to mention, it's not about, saying offensive things like Vince did, or there's also a segment in WWE that was controversial. Like, there's Abraham Washington who made a Kobe Bryant joke. Like, that's him improvising. Or there was another actor that was like saying, calling the Miz the N-word and all that, really. That's just been in the history of pro wrestling, where people or actors or other people involved will improvise and say and call it fake, or people will use offensive language or do other things like that. That's why you always got to be, really careful of your celebrities. That's why you have to have pre-meetings with all of them and saying, hey, if you're going to improvise or you're going to be interviewed, what are you going to say? Let's talk about it. And let's just, dissect it, really. So I do blame AEW for not being careful of what she's going to say, and they're completely responsible for it. Like, as Jim Cornette famously said, that if you're in the editing room, yes, you're accountable for editing out stuff. But honestly, when you give your, whatever happens on your show is completely on you, really. So they should have said, talk to her early on and say, like, hey, what are you going to say during this interview? Okay, this is what I'm going to say. We're going to say this line from the movie. Hey, that line can be misinterpreted. You shouldn't be saying that. So I do put fault on AEW for that. And, it's a growing thing, but they really have to really understand that, with their shows, with everything going on with AEW, they always have to be, they should not be involved in any type of controversy and any type of, stupid choice, really, because they do get a lot of scrutiny for it. So, like I've said, there's nothing they can do now about it. It's a big deal, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. They just have to keep on, just learning from this and moving forward.